Thank you, George. Well, I'm absolutely delighted to be here, Secretary of State, Your Excellencies, and everyone. I run a think tank in London, and we very rarely have events as well attended with such a senior and impressive attendance as the one that George has put on. So, George, well done, and I'm slightly jealous of your success. Here are some slides on the UK. So I'll just go through these quite quickly. Now, can I make it work? That's it? Oh! There. So this is a picture of me from 2 years ago. This man could ruin Britain for the middle classes. Just after our think tank had produced a report arguing that well-off, richer people in the UK should not receive benefit for the children that they have. Up to now, it's been a universal benefit for everyone in the UK, and we propose that richer people who really don't need it should no longer receive this benefit. And this was heavily criticised, including, I have to say, by my wife and my parents. The Chancellor, George Osborne, did accept this idea in his next budget. So this explains, it just goes to show that think tanks can have some influence in politics, perhaps. Let's see if I can do it. Is this going to work? Oops. Sorry, this isn't it. We'll go here. I mean, really what I'd like to say to you on the theme of can we combine consolidation and growth is, I think there is positive news from the UK. And really, we have just started our period of consolidation. And I think there is evidence of, it's just at the beginning, but there is evidence of change both in the public sector and in the private sector, which is pushing towards greater productivity and growth. So I think this is an optimistic message. What I'd like to do is to contrast what's happening now to the last 10 years in the UK, because, of course, there was a very different idea for the last decade, which was that we would get growth by spending more money. And that was spending more public money. And that was the great idea of the Tony Blair government and the Gordon Brown government, was that the UK needed investment, needed spending, it needed a better infrastructure, it needed better paid public servants, teachers, doctors, and so on. It needed stronger research and development in the private sector, and all of this would cost money. And what I'd like to begin with is the conclusion that this idea of very heavy spending in order to create growth did not have the results that was intended for it. So here is UK productivity, which is the pink line, and it was over the last decade, and it's disappointing, and it's disappointing in the way that other major economies was also disappointing, but nevertheless, the government hoped that. Okay, I have to wait for 3 seconds. So I will press it now. Okay, here we go. I'll carry on. So the UK government started spending a lot of money. Productivity, very disappointing. Here is the evidence of the spending. So this is the deficit on the government budget. So even in the years of growth, the UK was running very considerable deficits as a percentage of GDP. I'll just try this again. See what happens. Oh, come on. Oops. And the one that we missed. Sorry, I'm not making a very good job. The one that we missed was the expansion in debt, private sector debt. In the previous decade, and this is exactly paralleling the experience in Ireland. Heavy consumption, big increases in debt held by households, big increases in house prices, a real asset bubble. So that was the previous 10 years. Heavy government spending, very disappointing private sector growth, and a big increase in debt rather than anything more productive. So now in the UK we have a new government, David Cameron's government, coalition government, and it has set the objective of eliminating the deficit, which at its peak was around 10% of GDP, so it's a huge, huge deficit, is going to eliminate it. The original hope was that it was eliminated by 2015-16. Now, mainly because of the Eurozone crisis, the hope that the plan is to eliminate it by 2017-18. I don't need to remind you, but it's incredibly important in the UK debate, the sense of the credit rating, the sense of the international reputation of the economy. And we all know, of course, that countries have come under great pressure from the ratings agencies, but this has had a profound impact in the UK. It has driven the impetus to consolidation. Oops. Nevertheless, as I said, we are just at the beginning in the UK. This is the government's debt, the stock of debt, and as you can see, it's still rising. The hope is that it will peak by 2015-16 by the end of this current Parliament in the UK. I would expect it to go up, much higher than that. What's that? It could easily reach 80 or 90% in the UK. So we've still got this worrying increase in debt. Try that. Oops. This is a very efficient way of doing a presentation. So I do it in half the time. So now we come to the good news. Is there evidence of change in the private sector? I think the previous slide were some numbers on what's been happening to the debts held by private companies and by private households. And what's happening over the last 2 years, both companies and households have been paying down their debt. They've been greatly strengthening their financial position. So the government obviously is borrowing a lot, but households and companies are, if anything, moving to becoming lenders again rather than borrowers. And there's this real sense that the UK private sector had a real shock 3 years ago. Companies have been paying down reducing their costs. Yes, that includes reducing wages and in some cases reducing jobs. It does mean those very painful things. But it is genuine improvement in their financial position. In terms of what the government is doing, I think it's fair to say that the requirements of consolidation has led to a new energy in looking with real vigour and energy at what does it mean what can we do to encourage growth. That is what's happened. Before the crisis, I think the UK took growth for granted. Now there is a real focus on growth and a sense of catching up. So here is our answer. That should say November 2011. Just a couple of months ago. What he is doing is he's trying to change the balance on regulation. He's trying to make it easier for firms to employ people through a variety of ways we can talk about, and he is looking at the burden of environmental regulation. The UK government still absolutely is committed to the goals of a lower carbon economy and a fair workplace. This is not, the government is not going back on those basic goals, but it is looking at a change in the balance in order at this moment to improve the growth potential of the economy. So companies are improving their position. The government, I think, is now much more interested in growth. Let's try this again. Nothing at all. So now we come to the public sector, and this I think is particularly interesting because the government has tried to do two things. For some areas of our public services, it has required real cuts in spending. So for the police, the prisons, the local government, there are real reductions in these budgets. There will be less police officers in Britain 5 years from now. There will be less people working in prisons 5 years from now, and in local government too. and that's the Home Secretary, head of the police and other justice services at the top, Theresa May. For other services, in particular the health service and the schools, the government has protected those budgets. It has said there will be no cuts, no matter what that means for the rest of the public sector, these services will be protected. And what we can see is that in the services where there are cuts, there is a ferocious new debate about doing things differently, getting higher value for money, employing people differently. It is, of course, this is a challenge and it is difficult, but there is a real sense of a kind of energy that has been unleashed to improve these services. In the schools and hospitals, it is not like that. People are sitting on their hands. They are sort of lagging a very long way behind in the intellectual process of thinking about how to achieve value for money. So I can't emphasise this strongly enough. It's a real sense that the requirement to consolidate and save money is acting as a catalyst for new thinking in our public sector, and it's something that gives me, as you can see, absolutely genuine optimism going forward. Try again. Actually, that one doesn't matter, so we could have skipped that one. This is as it happens, just a piece of proof from one of our reports. A senior policeman in the West Midlands, in the middle of the UK, explaining how he has used the reductions in budgets as I say, a catalyst for new thinking. So just to prove to you that I'm not making this up. Try once more. Oh, okay. So now I'm not clearly by no means does the UK have the whole answer, and I'm not suggesting that it does. I think the government has got itself into trouble in a sort of public debate about the private sector. Our government has become very contradictory on the private sector. On the one hand, it says it wants stronger private sector growth. On the other hand, it says that it's nervous about how the private sector is organised. It doesn't like big companies paying high wages to its senior people. It's become extremely confused, so I've criticised them for that. I think there is a timidity on tax reform. In terms of, for a consolidation, there must be tax increases. There are economically effective ways of raising taxes, in particular by spreading the burden of taxation across all members of society. But of course, this is politically challenging to do, to increase taxes even on the poorest members of society, and our government has found that difficult. And as I say, in some areas of the public service, the government has been unwilling to demand real cuts and real efficiency. So I'm in no way am I saying that the UK has the model or all the answers. But as I say, I do think there are some green shoots. We'll just try this for the last time. Yes, so just to sum up, I do think that the requirement to reduce deficits is already changing the debate in the UK, both on the public sector and the private sector side. The UK has not solved this problem by any means. We are just beginning, but never. And as I say, there are significant political challenges, as I referred to a moment ago. But I think there is real signs of optimism, and particularly as I say, sort of the energy and new thinking and innovation which we're seeing in many parts of our public sector now do give me real optimism and hope.